Welcome to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters, where we guide the next generation to Christ through the outdoors. Join us around the campfire as we share stories of faith, courage, and adventure. Guys, welcome. I am so excited for everybody here today. What you're about to be a part of here today is extra special. Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters is coming to you a little different. You're actually coming from Jennifer and I's basement downstairs, as you see one of our bears on our walls right now behind us. But we're doing something a little different today. I know for the last 13 plus episodes, you guys have all been hearing some amazing experiences through CTO and what God is doing in the lives of young men and families across the country. And you've heard from our outfitters and our state directors and their hearts of what God has been doing. But today we got something extra special for you. So listen up, because you're going to want to hear what you're going to hear today. It's just not about me. It's not about Jennifer. But I want to introduce you to Kevin Kepple. And here in a minute, I'm just going to read you his bio, because his bio is so amazing, I don't remember it all. But before I even get into his bio to tell you exactly who he is, because I know he's like, oh, don't say all this stuff. But Kevin has been very, very instrumental in, it started with Jennifer through her Mary Kay and through her business. In coaching her and growing her as a leader and connecting it with StrengthsFinders. And he's going to explain all this to you guys. And I've watched it revolutionize Jennifer and her way of thinking and how she leads people. And I began to see that a long time ago. And so I began to get coached by Kevin myself over the last year plus. And we haven't been meeting here recently, but we met very regularly for a long time. And Kevin just opened my eyes to a whole new way to communicate with others through finding their strengths and finding who they are and how to utilize, and not to think of it from a weakness standpoint on weakness, but to utilize the strengths that God has given them. So it has changed my life. It's changed Jennifer's life. It's changed our ministry, our businesses, and we've utilized these principles that Kevin has taught us in Cross Trail Outfitters and many other things. So we're excited for you to hear this information and to hear some amazing things that you are going to hear today. So Kevin, welcome. We're excited that you are here. I'm going to give you a chance to talk here in a minute, Kevin, because you know that everybody doesn't want to listen to me. I got to reopen. Sorry. I'm trying to open up your bio. Like I said, we all talk about being authentic. Here we are. So I'm going to read this to you, who Kevin is. Now, you just heard who Kevin is to us, and he's a dear friend and a coach of Jennifer and I. But this kind of gives you his qualifications of who he is and why we wanted you guys to hear from him. Kevin is an international best-selling author and host of a top-ranked podcast, Unlocking Your Freedom. For over a decade, Kevin has been the secret weapon fueling the success of elite leaders and high-performing teams, from global heavyweights like Chick-fil-A, Bobcat, and Ford, to purpose-driven small business owners and their teams. As a certified Gallup strengths coach, an emotional intelligence specialist, and a leadership strategist, Kevin empowers leaders and teams to unlock their highest potential and achieve exceptional results. When he's not coaching greatness, you'll find him competing in ultra marathons, which he's crazy in that, but that's amazing, scaling alpine peaks and escaping to the mountains. So that tells you a little bit about Kevin in itself as a person and his ability and his skills as a leader. But more importantly than anything, guys, we want you to hear his heart and hear the knowledge that God has put in his head through his studies and his life training that he has had. So neither here nor there. Kevin, welcome, brother, to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was looking forward to this. Anytime I can be in your space and Jen's space, I'm always better for the time spent. So I was really looking forward to this. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're excited. I know we've talked about doing this. Matter of fact, since the very beginning of starting this, you helped coach us in what to do and what not to do, and gave us some tidbits of just doing what we've been trying to do for the last several months. and you gave us a good head start in a lot of things. So we do appreciate you, brother, on that. But more than anything, we appreciate what you've done in investing in Jennifer and I as people. So we do appreciate that. Jen, you got anything you want to say specifically before we get rolling?
I don't think so. I'm good.
Well, girl, wait a minute. I want to put this on record right here that my wife has nothing to say. I just want to, we're recording, right, Michael? I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Well, Kevin, let's get started with the fact of just kind of how you got started with us, but how you got started in your training and in your leadership and kind of your path. Kind of give everybody an idea of how you got to where you are today, and then lead that into what you can do and how we can give some great information to those that are listening on how to be a better leader, how to implement strength or implement the strengths that they do have, and how to go about that, and just kind of talk about those things.
Yeah, so just a really quick background and why, starting with StrengthsFinder, is why I think this tool is so phenomenal and bringing just more power into your life and power through love, because StrengthsFinder simply identifies like the natural brilliance you have, like what your strengths look like when they're in the creative service of others at their highest level. That's really valuable information to have. And it also shows you the dichotomy of your strengths, meaning any strength you have has two opposite expressions of that same strength. And it depends on how you're using it. You can use it in a way that brings clarity, impact, and energy, or you can use it in a way that brings stress, insecurity, and just throwing you out of alignment, out of sync. So before I get to that, the whole reason that I came to this, I worked in various professional sales roles after college for a number of years, about a decade, and it was pretty lucrative, and I was pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at helping people get what they want, and that's really what sales and leadership, a huge part of both of those things are. And I hired a business coach when I was working in financial services, and I had this cool job, and I had like a cool office. I had like a park view, and I wore like cool suits, and I thought I was really cool. And I remember I got a check once, and it was a really sizable amount of money for a commission, and I was so like empty of any like joy around it. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I might have climbed the wrong ladder. Like thinking about Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's like, make sure your ladder's leaned up against a wall you want to climb to the top of, And I remember I was looking at this check, and I'm like, if this had like 2 more commas in it, which would be a ton of money, right? Like that'd be great, but it wouldn't make me any happier. And so I already knew this, but unconsciously, but I hadn't brought awareness to it. Like no external thing was going to make me happy. That's not where happiness comes from. That's an inside job, and that all derives from my relationship with God. And if I'm chasing money, awards, accolades, whatever, like that's not alignment. That's definitely misalignment. Wow. And then I'm like like a victim to all these external things going the way I want them to go, or not going the way I want them to go, or whatever the case may be. So anyways, I was working with a business coach, and this guy was great. His name was Robert. Robert had been in the Secret Service for almost 30 years, and he had this great way of kind of looking right through you when you talked. And he's like, tell me about your job. I was like, oh, I love it, and blah, 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 all this, and like just blowing smoke. I didn't even know I was blowing. And he looked at me, and he goes, man, I don't even think you like your job. I go, what are you talking about? He's like, you quit looking at me. You never made eye contact. Your body language tells me you don't believe what you're saying. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're so right. No, I didn't say that. I was like, like really frustrated and annoyed and like fought for all these beliefs that I had created. And I took StrengthsFinders at his suggestion. And our next meeting, he goes, let's look at your strengths. And I'm like, well, they're in my office on the shelf. And he's like, that's awesome. Like how much, how long did it take you to take that? I was like, I don't know, 20 minutes. He goes, how much did you study it? I was like, maybe 5 minutes. Kind of looked for the part where it said I was the most awesome thing ever, and it didn't say that, and I quit reading it. And he's like, that's awesome. He goes, so you have decades of like these ways of being that maybe aren't serving you, and you spend 25 minutes trying to like do better. Like, yeah, that's a good point. So I went and blew the dust off the shelf, and really, long story short, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had permission to be me, because what I unknowingly had been doing for my whole life was trying to be like everybody else around me, especially my older brother, who I'm really close to and I look up to and I love. And we're completely opposite, though, when you look at our strengths. And so I was always this like second-rate version of him as opposed to a first-rate version of me. And I took StrengthsFinders, and I quickly figured out I wanted to be doing something else. I wanted to be coaching, mentoring, leading leaders. And so I found a job at Mary Kay part of the corporate office. My job was to go around the country as a national sales and leadership trainer and coach. I got to work with high achievers like Jen every day and learn from them and learn with them and teach them. And I got really good at helping people get what they want through the vehicle of leadership and sales. And about 6 years ago now, I left. I started my own thing. And since then, I've been working with individuals and teams that want to eliminate the drama and find more happiness and increase revenue. It's pretty simple. Doesn't mean easy, but yeah, it's definitely better than a stick in the eye. You get to have a lot of fun helping people do what they love to do and bring out their version of excellence, whatever that may be.
Yeah, no, I love that. You said something earlier. You were talking about how trying to be who you are in a better version of yourself and being okay with who you are. How does a person deal with that when, okay, this is who I am, but then if others aren't accepting of that, how does a person roll through that? I mean, because not everybody's going to necessarily like the version that I am or the version that Jen is or the version that you are, and how does a person deal with that in their everyday life, but also in business, in ministry, in life in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's this book I like to read a lot. I would highly recommend it. It's called The Bible. You probably heard of it. But there's this guy in there. His name's Jesus. And he said something to the effect of, shake the dust off your feet and go to the next town if they're not ready to receive your message. And I paraphrased that a little bit. But you know what? Like, the thing is, like, if I'm trying to please everybody, I'm placating towards the middle, and I'm intentionally being average. And the thing is, if I want to be above average, I have to treat myself above average. And that means I have to go to the edges of me. And you know what? If I'm truly at the edges of me, at the zenith of my brilliance, I'm not going to be for everybody. Like, you're not for everybody. That's okay. Like, so what? It's not a big deal. As long as I'm showing up in kindness and doing it from a place of humility and love and really leveraging God's wisdom, I'm not going to please everybody. If I do something wrong, I need to make amends. But other than that, like, that's okay. Like, everybody's not for me either. And the thing is, like, if you're truly standing out and being unique and authentic, you're going to get judged. I guarantee it, because people always judge what they don't understand. I mean, look at Jesus was constantly judged. And that's okay if people are judging. But if you're the one making the judgments that, like, hey, they don't like me and this is bad, that's a judgment. And the thing is, judgment is the end of understanding, because once you've judged something as this or someone as that, you work to prove yourself right moving forward instead of actually making a new decision. And, like, people change and we can change. And so that would be my suggestion, but, it doesn't make it right.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, that's
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah, you bet.
So for me, when I started learning about StrengthsFinders, I think I'd kind of lost my identity on who I was. I had been through several years of just kind of questioning myself and not really sure who I was. And when I took the StrengthsFinders test and I started focusing on my strengths, I started realizing my love for who I was again. And so that has been, for me, completely pivotal in my life, because I've been accepting of myself and learning to love myself. And you can't really love other people until you love yourself. Yeah. And so one thing that the StrengthsFinders has been is really focusing on my strengths instead of my weaknesses. Yeah. And I think so many times, especially if we're achievers or competitive or anything like that, we want to make ourselves better, so we focus on our weaknesses to make those better instead of focusing on our strengths and living in those strengths. So,
you're absolutely right. And one thing I love about the StrengthsFinders, exactly what she just said, but some of your lower strengths, when you get into that 20, 24, 25, 30 plus range, we would normally look at that as a weakness because it's so low. Competition is one of my top 5. So I would look at that and say, well, that's a weakness, but that's not how StrengthsFinder looks at it. It's just not one of your stronger strengths. And I think most people, especially myself, growing up in an athletic setting my whole entire life, all the way through, even through college, and there always had to be a weakness. And so you focused on a weakness and you tried to improve your weakness. And then therefore you never really were improving your strengths, because you're doing nothing but focus on what was called your weakness, rather than really enhancing those strengths, those top strengths that you have, that God gave you specifically to be you. That was like the life-changing and my mind-boggling revelation of realizing that for me to understand, those aren't weaknesses; those are strengths, and understanding that and how to relate with others and to communicate better and understanding who they are, and realizing that that doesn't make them a bad person necessarily. It doesn't make them where if their strengths don't line up with mine, and how I can communicate and how I can love them better and to communicate better with them in ministry and in leadership and in just life in general. So that was huge for me in terms of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the two most asked questions I get when I teach StrengthsFinders or do workshops is how do I move up my weaknesses? And to your point, StrengthsFinders is not like a complete portrait of your whole character like some assessments. It's like, hey, here's your natural talents, your strengths ranked in order of how strong they are for you. And that top 10 to 13 is where you get the majority of your output.
Yeah.
And the things at the bottom, again, they're not weaknesses. They're just least expressed. The things that actually don't give you that much energy. And frankly, if you're doing those things, it actually takes a lot of energy. You're not going to get that greater results anyways. And so it's really important to understand, what are the things I pay the most attention to? Because that's like the love. And the things you love doing, those are your natural strengths. And where you're going to find just abundant energy. And you're going to be the most creative. You're going to have really high levels of performance. You're going to show up the best in your relationships with other people, and you're going to bring your most powerful leadership forward. That's going to be your leadership style. But if you're trying to do it like somebody else, everybody likes to compare, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And joy is love expressed. And so anytime you're trying to be like somebody else, you're trying to replicate creativity, and that doesn't work. I can't replicate creativity. It's not a copy. It can rhyme, but it's never going to be the same thing. And there's a very specific reason that you have these strengths designed in this specific way, because the whole point of our time here is to understand what makes us unique and how we can use that to create value for other people. And that's really cool, because when I'm thinking that way, I'm not worried about me. I'm not, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's not going to happen? There's no restlessness when I'm doing that. There's just a really good feeling of connection. And the more connected we are, the more fulfilled and happy we are every single time. Directly proportional relationship.
Say that statement again. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Of joy? Yeah. And then joy is love expressed, right? And, Jesus said it, John said it, it's all over the Bible. God is love. And so, our highest form of love is being aligned with our top strengths and their brilliance. And it's so simple. It doesn't mean easy, because, again, there's that dichotomy. I call it the brilliance and the beast, because every strength has a light side and a shadow side. And obviously, I want to be in the light, in the brilliance. And the strength doesn't change, but how you use it changes. When you're aligned with your light, with your truth, with your brilliance, that's powerful. But when you're misaligned, it creates problems instead of solving problems. And so the whole solution to all of that is awareness, because awareness is what turns your beast back into brilliance, because the beast is driven by your ego, and the ego lives in unawareness. And awareness and ego are incompatible. And so it just takes intentional awareness.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there with what you're saying, because when you're saying that, my mind starts churning in all different directions. You use the word to me multiple times in understanding some of my strengths, like significance is my number one, and you were just talking about, you use the term that's your superpower. You use it and go use it for the kingdom, use it for leadership, use it to empower people. And understanding that, I never thought about it from the perspective until you started teaching me about not just significance and other of my strengths, but just you thinking of it like a superpower, to being able to, that's what makes me unique. That's what makes each person unique. And it also that is their superpower. And once you can enhance that superpower and acknowledge that you have that, then you can go change the world. You can go accomplish your goal. You can go and do what God wants you to do, whether it's in your work, it's in your family, or if it's in ministry, or whatever it may be. And understanding that that's how God uniquely made you. and He made each one of us uniquely for a purpose. And once we understand that, we can go and go do it and do it better. That was huge for me to understand. This may sound weird, but like, wow, I got superpowers.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to self-condemn ourselves and look down upon ourselves, and because we're focusing on so much of the weaknesses, not even understanding that I do have weaknesses, but yet not focusing on those, focusing on these strengths, that you do have a superpower, how God can use you.
That right there is a huge point you just made. Like, I want to make sure and call that out, because like that is one of the most like subtle forms of self-sabotage, is downplaying your natural gifts or taking them for granted because they're so easy and natural for you to use. I heard somebody say that on a call the other day, and she's really successful in what she does. She's like, I just never thought of these as strengths because it's so easy for me to do this. I'm like, that's why it's a strength. It's a natural talent. Like, of course it's easy, but it's like energizing at the same time, and it's not easy for everybody else. But the things that are really hard for us can be easy for other people. You know, like my brother's number one strength is like 32 or 3 for me. It's called deliberative. He's like very methodical, very risk averse. He's very good at identifying problems. And I'm like, I quit listening halfway through your explanation, just jumped off the cliff and started building my wings on the way down because I have activator really high. And that's how I think better, like ready, fire, aim. But to him, that's risky and irresponsible. And it's not better or worse, but it's a phenomenal compliment, because if I'm making a big decision, I always ask him, like, hey, what do you think about this? Because I know he's so careful. And he also has responsibility like you do, Kirk. And like, man, responsibility is such a powerful, beautiful strength, because in their brilliance, people with responsibility, like you, highly dependable. Like you say, your word is your bond. You say you're going to do it. There's no like, man, is he going to be here? Like, no, he'll be there. And that's great. But in the beast mode, what people with responsibility do, they're over responsible. So they overcommit, and then they burn out, and then they can't serve anybody. And so it's just bringing awareness to like, hey, when is this serving me? When is this sabotaging me?
Yeah, no, that's great. That kind of leads into the fact, we're talking about these strengths, and it leads into the fact of being in your balcony and in your basement. Explain to everybody kind of what that is, and you can use us as an example, or use a strength as an example of what would be, like you kind of hinted at it just now, of what might be a balcony of a strength and what would be a basement of the strength, because your strengths can be used in a bad way. If you're not in a good place, or for whatever reason it might be in your life. So,
yeah, and it's like still, and to the point about fixing your weaknesses or fixing yourself, like nobody's broken. Like when you're in the basement, it just means that you're using your strength in a reactive way as opposed to a creative way. So you're probably misusing or overusing the strength. So for instance, competition's number 2 for Kirk. It's number 6 for me. I love to win. So does he. And that's great. But like in the basement, your beast side, the dark side, the shadow side, what that looks like is basically me from age 15 to 30, where I was over competitive. Like I used the strength too much in a way. It was like all about me winning. There's this hyper focus on what's important to me. And so a very healthy version of competition is how Kirk uses it to build CTO. It's about us winning. Like, how can we be better? How can like we all win? And like, again, the B side's like, hey, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I don't care whose throat I have to stand on, right? And that's just not effective. And it's very restrictive, and it reduces your power because your ego burns massive amounts of energy. And the number one way to increase your use of energy is to stop wasting it on things that don't matter, like being right, being number one, beating everybody else. Like, that's not the point. It's collaboration that we're looking for, especially in leadership. And, again, not about fixing your strengths. It's about becoming more aware and intentional with how you use them. And like, it's again so simple, but it doesn't mean easy. And like, there's kind of 4 levels to skill development. First is like unconscious incompetence. It's like you don't even know what you're not good at. In that first level, you're like, if I don't know my strengths at all, like, I don't have words to identify them.
Yeah.
But then like once you learn the strengths, it's cool, because then you have at least unconscious incompetence. Okay, cool. I can see where I'm going into the basement with this strength. And that leads to level 3, which is like the conscious incompetence, right? Like, okay, like I see how I'm doing poorly. And then there's like, like that unconscious competence that leads us to where we just start showing up in the brilliance of our strength on demand. But that only happens with awareness and intention.
Wow. Something that was coming to my heart and head when you were sitting there speaking on that, when you for those who are listening don't know this, a couple years ago we brought Kevin in virtually to one of our state director meetings. We were in North Carolina at the Cove, the Billy Graham Association's Cove place, a retreat center there. And we brought him in for a couple of hours, and we had all of our top leaders taking the StrengthsFinder's test. They had already done this. And it was very eye-opening for all of us. It was actually a lot of fun, but also eye-opening, but also sometimes a little hard to hear sometimes when you see things you don't even realize about somebody else. But Kevin, what you ended up doing, just for those who are listening, you came on and we literally in that hour time went from person to person. Here's your top 5 strengths, and then we're able. It doesn't mean that you know everything. It's not like you're necessarily prophetic or something. I'm not saying you can't have that gift, but when you were looking at their strengths, it was like you were talking to every person. Like every person in a room, you would say something about one of their strengths and say, "Well, I bet you have a problem with this, or you're really good at this," and we'd go, "How did he know that? He doesn't know these people, right?" So it's just a good way to open our eyes of just, again, how a person is and recognizing that as a strength to be able to do that. And something that I have used in my own communication, and not everybody even knows this in CTO, but I don't always do this because sometimes just my frailty as a human, I don't always do this because I'm not thinking good enough or thinking clearly. Before I make a phone call, if I know that person that has done StrengthsFinders and they've been in our ministry or through the leadership programs that we've tried to implement here with Cross Trail Outfitters, and I know those, I actually have that in my phone, in my contacts. So I know that person's top 5 strengths. So before I make a phone call, I will look at their contact, remind myself of what those strengths are. If I don't necessarily, because some strengths we recognize and we know real easily, and there's some are like, man, I kind of forgot what that is. So there's been times where I go back and I'll read what that strength is. It helps me communicate better, to know how to communicate better with that person that I'm about to have a conversation with. Whether it's just a, hey, how are you doing? How I can minister to them better, or maybe there's a situation we're just working through. It allows me to be able to communicate better and how it can be a win-win for both of us. You helped me before about, you're talking about competition again, pick on myself again. If I'm very competitive and I know another person is competition's in their top 5, or maybe might be their number 1, and I know we both are going to be very competitive about our ideas and our thoughts, you've always coached me in communicating is, how can we make this a win-win? How can we both win in this situation? They don't necessarily have to say it like that, but you're going to phrase those questions accordingly to be able to make everybody feel like, yeah, I like that. Oh, yeah, I like that too. And everybody wins because we both won in that situation. It's not about being the winner, how we can make everybody win. Now, I'm not a guy that likes the whole participation ribbons or something. I think that's destroyed our kids nowadays, quite honestly. But at the same time, that's not what I'm getting at. So if somebody's listening, I don't want them thinking, oh yeah, well, Kirk's all about these, everybody gets credit for all these things. But it's just to help communicate, using the competition as an example, to make it where both people can win and be able to communicate that and not make it about me. Not make it about myself being right. And I think that's just important to know, for people to understand that and know that everybody is at different levels of, I don't know if leadership's the right word, but everybody's at different places in their life. And not everybody has been blessed to have a coach like yourself. And maybe, I believe every man specifically, and woman too, should have another man in their life as a mentor, and to be discipled. It worked for Jesus, right? And what he did, obviously his mentor was God, his Father. But in terms of the disciples and how he discipled them, how he mentored them and each other, every person needs that, but not everybody does that. So not everybody is as self-aware, or not everybody's going to understand how you communicate to them because not everybody's trying to get better. But not holding that against that person when you're communicating with them, but understand from a little more empathetic way of looking at it. And as you all know, I think empathy is my number. I'm not 34, not the very last one, but I think it's like 29. And
Yeah.
Jennifer, that's her number one, is empathy. So you look at Jen and I, we're like they call us the Beauty and the Beast. There's a reason for that. She's beautiful and I'm a beast. So there is a purpose of that. So she's empathetic. I'm not empathetic. That again, that doesn't mean that empathy is a weakness of mine either. That still is a strength. I'm a minister. There's many times I've been in funeral situations and tough situations with families, and I'm very empathetic during those time frames because that is a strength of mine. It's just not my highest one. Thank you for listening to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters. CTO is a hunting and fishing club with the mission of guiding the next generation to Christ through the outdoors. If you'd like to support us or are interested in getting involved, visit us on our website at teamcto.org. Links are in the description. Make sure to like and share our podcast. And join us next time around the campfire with Wild Pursuits.